Welcome to Corpstruction, a show about the missions, activities, and employees of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Anthony Semento is the Regional Contingency Operations Chief for the Southwestern Division. The Southwestern Division is comprised of 4 USACE districts, including Tulsa, Galveston, Little Rock, and Fort Worth. Combined, the Southwestern Division covers Texas, Oklahoma, and portions of Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas. Anthony, welcome to Corpstruction.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.
So, as we get started, can you explain what you do and what your work entails as a regional, as the regional chief of contingency operations?
Sure, absolutely. First, thanks for having me on this. I really appreciate it. It's always a great opportunity to share what we do with an audience who knows not what we do. So, definitely appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So what do I do? As the chief of the contingency operations for the Southwestern Division, have a lot of functions. We have many different functions that we do, from field force engineering to where we deploy teams of technical engineers to support events that are going on overseas. In a lot of times in combat. We have our flood control coastal emergency function under PL 8499 that deals with flooding and flood fighting and rehabilitation of structures and levees and channels and such. Then we have security, physical security, anti-terrorism, and we're concerned with our structures, our footprint that you mentioned. We're really concerned with that and the security of our personnel in that footprint. We have emergency management, which is a piece we're going to get into quite a bit here today. But we have emergency management, which is responding to disasters, working for FEMA or possibly working directly for the state. But it's those disasters in which was utilized under the Stafford Act. And we do things such as debris removal, temporary roofing, temporary power, which Tulsa happens to have a team of those, critical housing. So there's a lot of different functions that fall under that we do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. No, you're good. You're good.
I was just going to say, the temporary power. I know each district tends to have its own specialization, right? In those.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think Mobile has. Do they have a blue roof? Or no, Little Rock has a blue roof program.
Yep, Little Rock has a blue roof, and our Fort Worth district has the debris removal and clearance, and our Galveston district. Sorry, couldn't think of their name for a minute, but our Galveston district has they just inherited critical housing, so critical public facilities under housing. So that deals with police stations, fire stations, hospitals, schools, whatever the mayor or the governor deems is critical to the infrastructure of that town that was impacted by that disaster.
And then you also have don't you also have like the structural engineers who go to disasters? Like we have one guy, Christopher Strunk, who we sent down to Florida after the collapse.
For the search and rescue. Right. Absolutely, yeah. You've been studying. Yeah, no, it's a great asset we have there with our structural folks. That team is run out of South Pacific Division. They're the proponent for the whole agency, and we provide people, structural engineers, to the search and rescue teams when they do go there. And then we also have our local government liaisons, which the Southwestern Division we are the proponent for the entire enterprise for the Corps of Engineers for that function. And those are the people that will deploy forward to a city to sit with the mayor. They're right there next to the mayor, advising the mayor on what the Corps of Engineers can do for them and helping them through the process. Because as I'm sure everybody listening to this is aware, a disaster is very stressful. It's stressful to the leaders of those of those cities, the stress, not just the people who were impacted. Those leaders are trying everything they can to get their towns and cities back to normalcy. And it's just, it's very stressful. So we put someone there right next to them to advise them in that.
As far as those teams that go, because they tend to be individually managed by the emergency management, at least the staffing and recruiting of that, they set that up at each individual district. And how are they reporting to you the information that they're getting when they're coming back? What type of stuff, or what kind of information are they sending up to you, and how do you fit into that?
Great question. So when we have a disaster, and I'm going to I'll just pick a disaster that we have had in this region. Oh. So when we are the leaders and responding to a disaster within our region, we'll say we're going to talk about, as we did before, the floods of 2015, which impacted every single district within our region. So when we had those floods, we would send the teams out. We would decide, I say we have someone that would sit with FEMA and figure out what they need, what the federal government can do to support the state. It's always at the state. The state is driving this train, and FEMA has a structure set up that works, that has all these emergency support functions stacked up under them. There's 15 of them, and we are one of them. We are ESF3, Public Works and Engineering. Excuse me. So under that function, and I know I'm going through a story, but I'm going to tell this little story, kind of give you an idea of how it all works and fits together. So when that occurs, we have teams in each one of these functions that are out there. The debris team is out looking at the debris, deciding how much debris is out there. The temp power teams, like Tulsa District has it, are doing similar, trying to identify where the needs are, by working with the states. And then FEMA brings generators with us, and our teams will go and install those generators into these critical buildings, into the buildings that are deemed critical by the state. So we're coordinating and consolidating all that information, collating all that information, because of course we have a hire, at the region. We're smack in the middle of all of this. So we're pushing and pulling information to higher and to lower. When I say lower, we're to the districts and our higher headquarters in Washington, D.C. So we're maneuvering through that whole process, which is always a challenge, because as anyone that has a boss knows, the boss is always asking questions about what's going on. So we have to provide that steady information flow to keep our higher headquarters, Washington, D.C., apprised, because they're being asked by Congress and by the Senate and by leaders, the FEMA administrator, by leaders in Washington, D.C. So we have to make sure our boss knows all that information. So we're working through the districts. The districts is the tip of the spear. They're the ones that are doing all the work and the heavy lifting. At the region, we're a conduit for that, but we also fix the issues that the district has. So this way, they're not stuck trying to figure it out while they're in the middle of this disaster. So we'll go in and we'll help them fix whatever issues they might have. For instance, during the 2015 floods, getting sandbags, you could imagine, was a big issue. And we had all of our districts engaged in flood fighting at the time. So we worked that piece to the ground, and we were able to get, sandbags and flood fight materials, not just sandbags, but flood fight materials to all the different districts.
Yeah, we brought in.
So the difference, don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, we brought in a sandbag machine from Kansas City District. I remember that.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. And now we all own our own. We have our own sandbag machines within the region. So we learned a lot from those floods, and then we did things to keep those from happening again. And then we provide, in those resources, like we had all of our districts engaged. We have to adjudicate resources. So when we're getting resources pushed down from higher, We have to figure out, okay, where is the priority? What is the commander, our commander, the division commander, the general, what is his priorities? And for that district, which district is and needs these right now, which one could wait? So we're doing that. We're going through that process too. And when I say resources, personnel, equipment, money, you name it, anything and everything you could think of. So those are all the resources that we bring to those districts so they can continue to do their job.
Tony, you brought up the need for a request from the state to a federal agency to provide assistance in the form, I believe, of an emergency declaration. So for the prospective gubernatorial candidates out there in the world, can you give a quick breakdown on how that works in terms of there's a disaster and the governor needs to, and obviously they'll have advisors, but can you give a quick breakdown on how that works from our perspective?
Yeah, sure. So there's different types of declarations. When I say it's the governor who will declare an emergency for his state, which what that does, that gets it enables that governor to be able to use funds in a different manner, in a different way. It puts different people in charge of different programs to make it more agile to respond to a disaster within their state. Now, if it's a bad disaster, that state will ask, we're a federal asset, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. That governor will ask the president for federal assets. And that could be in the form of FEMA and us, but they will ask specifically for what they need from the president. Then once the president agrees, there is a formal presidential declaration that enables FEMA to come in with all it has and brings us right along with them. And we start all those, with whatever it is they need, be it, like I said, debris or power or whatever their need is. And we come in and then we're able to really help them tremendously. And the great thing about it is that they don't pay the full price. Normally it's a 75-25 cost share, 25% for the state. And depending on the president might waive those fees. So it depends on many things. Those things I don't have visibility on, but they don't pay full price for these efforts. So that helps the state out a lot when they're in the middle of those disasters and they need all the money they can get. So that's really the process of how it works from beginning to the end, and it's driven by the people on the ground, by that mayor or that county judge that needs help. They're the ones, like our districts are the tip of the spear. Those communities that were just impacted by that flood event or by that hurricane or by that tornado, they are the ones that are asking the governor for the help. And then the governor in turn goes up, it funnels up. But those people in those communities, they are in charge of their area, their disaster, and how we're employed into that area. Did that answer? That help?
And you mentioned we use that term PL 8499, Public Law 8499 a lot. But can you explain what PL 8499 does and how that helps?
Yeah, sure. So Public Law 80, you'll hear a couple of different things. Public Law 8499, flood control, coastal emergencies. Public Law 8499 is the law that enables the Army Corps of Engineers to be the executive flood fight agent for the nation. That law is what sets that and enables us to respond to flooding across the nation. And that falls under our emergency management teams that are at every single district. And it gives them that authority, and they're funded under that authority and that is the flood control coastal emergency. So that is that, and it's all about, and that is all about flood. It's all about flood fighting. It's all about how to respond, recover, mitigate from, and prepare for floods.
Yeah, I know we've got some levees here that received some damage, and because of PL 8499, they were able to get some construction funds for that.
Yep.
to make repairs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's the other thing we do. You brought up a great point. It's not only all of that. That is part of the recovery that we do. We will come in, and any levees that are damaged that are in the PL 8499 program, the counties and the states, the counties and the cities have to request to be in that program. They go through a test. They go through an inspection. We'll check them and make sure their levees are up to date with current standards, engineering standards, and we will then place them in this program. So when there is a disaster, when something does break, we come in and we will help repair it. We will assist them in repairing it, and it's definitely a great program, and it's helped a lot of people out. But that's the other side, and I'm glad you said that. That's the other side to this. That's the tail, I guess you would say. That's after the disaster's gone through. We go out and ask them, hey, is there any damages to any of your systems, your levees? And wherever they come back with, we will start that process and rehabilitate that levee system.
So you're down in Dallas at Division, and you're dealing with 2 Texas districts and an Arkansas and an Oklahoma district, essentially, with some Kansas and Missouri mixed in there. How often are you keeping in touch with the emergency man? I say yours, but with the emergency managers at the various districts. I know, our Bill Smiley here in Tulsa and the others. Does that require, because you have so many different sort of disciplines even within emergency management now, how often are you having to keep track with them and touch base?
Oh, we're in touch with them weekly, sometimes daily. Even every week we meet all the chiefs. All the chiefs will meet, and we bring everybody. We let everybody listen to what's going on, and we all talk. But especially with the last 2 years with COVID, we had to figure out how to do a lot of things that were not in person. So we've been having meetings, WebEx, Teams, what have you. We've been doing that every single week just to keep abreast of what's going on. We even managed a disaster through WebEx and being separated, not being in the same room, being in an emergency operations center, which normally it's how we do it. Everybody was at their homes, and we managed events that way too. So it is we speak all the time. And the emergency management community is a very, very close knit community, very close knit. So I talk about it that it's a family is the way I refer to it, and it really is. It's a very close knit family. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows who brings what to the table, and which makes it helpful when you're in an event. Strengths and weaknesses of everybody and what they can do and what they bring. So so knowing that about district teams and how they operate helps us at the region, because then we know what we need to do to either get more resources or hold back and wait for them to ask, or, you name it. But speaking of all that, not just disasters, I just wanted to, this one bit we have, it's not just FEMA we respond to, or floods. We also respond to the Department of Defense and to our installations. That was the other side. We have called the 3-legged stool, and those 3 areas, FEMA under PLA 499 and Department of Defense, military installations, we'll respond to assist them too.
Right. We've sent some engineers over with the various what is Forward Engineer Support Team? Is that proper term? FEST?
No, the Fort Sill. Yeah, but we sent the 59th Ford Engineer Support Team to Fort Hood, but it wasn't just to Fort Sill. I'm sorry. Fort Hood, Fort Worth District responded to Fort Hood and to Fort Polk, and Tulsa District just last year during the ice storms responded to Fort Sill, and the EM team went forward. Bill Smiley and the chief went forward with the commander and the deputy, and this was a learning event for us because we don't really do that a lot. So it really helped us to learn, because when you're responding, it's basically the same. It's just at my area, in my level, we have to. It's a different funding that brings us those money, and we haven't done that in a long time, and had a lot of lessons learned because of that. And Tulsa District did a great in figuring out how to get that moving.
If anybody's curious about the work at Fort Sill specifically in the Tulsa District, there was an ice storm last year, and it damaged some military buildings, like I think some barracks and some other facilities. And as a result, we had to do a sort of an emergency, send out some engineers who could basically inspect the facilities and try to make recommendations and make a determination on how they would get repair funds for that. Right, that was the kind of the gist of it. And I think with the COVID, were you also involved in the COVID facility work?
Oh yeah, yep. Our alternative care facilities. Yes, that was something. Yeah, each district did a tremendous job with that. My goodness. Identified hundreds of alternative care facilities in case the states needed those facilities to help those that were impacted by COVID, that had COVID. That was wow. That was an incredible time. I'm glad COVID, knock on wood, is on the downhill. Hopefully it'll keep going that way.
And during that time, you brought this up, you kind of addressed it. You said you all had to do a lot of talking via WebEx or Teams or other systems. How much of a challenge was that versus, I mean, in previous years, like even when we had the flood, there was a lot of those conference room phone calls in the EOC, in the Emergency Operations Center during the 15 flood and the 19 flood.
But,
with this one, everybody was, I mean, people weren't necessarily even in the office,
No, you're right.
They were using the VPN.
Yeah. And that was a challenge because the Corps of Engineers as a whole was not ready for that. They weren't ready to have that many people on that VPN. And in the beginning, they really had to work hard to increase that pipeline to be able to get 30,000 people from the Corps of Engineers into it, because it was not designed for that at all. It was only designed for about 10% of that. So that was a tremendous challenge. I mean, we were using our personal phones. We were using everything we could think of just to get over that hump until our systems started working and enabling us to do that. That biggest challenge, that was completely 100% IT. It was all technology, the challenges we were having. And with the Corps of Engineers, they jumped on it, and it took a couple weeks, but it was back up. I want to say it was a couple weeks. I'm not positive, but it took a couple weeks for them to get everything right so we could operate.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of IT infrastructure work that they did, and software work that they had to do very, very quickly to get up to speed, and they got us in there. In the last, it seems like in the last 5 years, there have just been so many disaster response deployments that have come out. Like when I
Way
came,
too many.
yeah, I came home from Qatar in like 18 and in early 2018, and I came back to work, and people were still in Puerto Rico. Um,
Yeah,
and,
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
and then
it was that time.
and then relatively recently there was Louisiana, the storm
Yeah.
in Louisiana. Um, what are is there one that and then 19 in 2019 that there was the flood.
Yeah, we
Tulsa
had the floods.
yeah,
Yeah, it hit Oklahoma and Arkansas both.
right.
Yeah.
What is there one in particular that sticks out to you that was more challenging than any of the others?
Oh my goodness, yes. And I would say it was the hurricane in 2017 that we had in on the Texas coast.
That's
Harvey.
right.
That one it hit the coastline twice. It impacted twice. It made two separate landfalls on the Texas coast. So it damaged down in Port Aransas, then came back up and hit Houston hard. And there was so much flooding because of that. It was a challenge because when that occurred, our systems were getting to the top of their flood pool, the top of what they could safely manage, and there were some releases that had to occur, and it was tough because our leaders at that time really had to make some tough decisions on what to do. What happens if you protect the structure, or you have to protect the structure, because if you don't, that water in the structure is going to impact the entire city of Houston.
Right.
When you talk about an entire reservoir that's filled with water, if that dam breaks, the things it could do, rather than just so trying to think through that process and how to manage that was terrible. And it was, I took a ride down there went down there with our commanding general at the time, and we drove through the area, and just seeing the devastation was just, it was heartbreaking. I mean, every disaster is, but it was just this one we were really involved with, because we had all the sides of our missions were coming at us from FEMA. FEMA brought us in, and we were doing housing, debris, all those things were on the table. And then we also had our own flood fight under our authorities under PLE 499. And then outside of PLE 499, our dams and reservoirs, managing those under our O&M, our operations and maintenance line. So we were in navigation. Just forgot about navigation. The rivers were unpassable. Commerce couldn't move through the rivers because the shoaling that built up, it just clogged the rivers from that hurricane. That was the worst we've had in a metropolitan area. Houston being the fourth largest city. Fourth, yeah. Yeah, I think it's fourth largest city in the nation. Someone's going to yell at me about that. But so since I'm from Orange originally, which is right next to there, so I should know this. But my brain just locked up. But anyways, so yeah, that was the worst, being in a metropolitan area like that. The damages to the.
You said some of the resources that were brought to bear to assist that, some of those teams that we had talked about earlier. It was debris removal. What did they have? Was it pretty much everybody? I mean, pretty much.
It was everybody. We had everybody there.
Teams.
Yeah, we had a big infrastructure assessment, water treatment plants. Hundreds of them went down, were destroyed. And you think about that, you can't treat the water. People can't drink the water. There's no ability, they're boiling water and such. And so we were out inspecting those facilities, working with the EPA to try to get those back up online. It was just, there was so much involved with that disaster. And that's the one that really sticks out to her. I tell you, that one, and there's one more, and it happened in Tulsa in 2013. In Oklahoma in 2013, it was those tornadoes, the EF5s, both went the doubles. More. Yeah, that went through. I got up there middle of that. Went up there after the first one. We didn't think a second one was coming, but got up there after the first one, and all of a sudden the sirens going off, and we were at a mall that FEMA was working out of. FEMA and the Tulsa District were working out of, and we had to take cover because the second one just came through, and it was horrible. I mean, seeing that and seeing how quickly something like that could destroy someone's lives, and that's why I like this job so much, because it is the only job in the Corps of Engineers that has immediate impact on people's lives and bringing them back from such a horrible event like this. We don't wait on anything. We're acting immediately, to try and get to whatever their need is and fix it.
Yeah, you definitely, for your emergency managers, especially, you have to be like a person of action for that kind of a job. You can't be a sit back and wait person, because like you're going to get calls from, like you were just saying, you had wastewater concerns and EPA concerns. With that Houston event, the Houston hurricane, did you have to basically assist that emergency manager by giving another phone number out, or how did you?
I know our team down there in Galveston is very strong. They know hurricanes, and they're really good at that. But what we did is just help provide everything else.
Yeah,
we were getting pumps coming down from as far up as Minnesota, and so we were just orchestrating all that, just bringing everything we can to them, everything they needed. We just worked at getting those things we talked about before, those, the resources, the people, the personnel, equipment, funds, all of that. We just started pushing and trying to get as much as we can to them. Any event, it takes more people than what a district has. It takes more than what a region, a division like the Southwestern Division. You can't do this alone. It takes the whole team, the whole vertical team, all the way up to our folks in Washington, D.C. that are sitting at the Corps of Engineers headquarters. It's all one team, and we come in and fight as hard as we can to bring that town back. And it's not just us, it's everybody, it's the community, it's FEMA, it's all the federal agencies, it's everybody. But we as the Corps of Engineers don't do this alone at all. We couldn't. It's impossible.
How many different FEMA regions are in our overall division region? I think in Tulsa we have 2 that we deal with, like 5 and 6, I believe.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, we're fortunate. We have other regions have many. We're fortunate. We just have the 2. We have 5 and 6.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, that's it. And we're very fortunate to have that, and mainly 6. Our responsibility is to be the proponent for the Corps for FEMA Region 6. So my office, we do that. One of my chief of current operations, she's the one that's one of her big focuses, is to be that kind of that liaison to FEMA Region 6. And because all of our states, most of our states, I should say, are in that region. And that's the reason why we have that. Besides our states, you got Louisiana and New Mexico, and that makes up Region 6. So, and they're local too. So it just makes it very easy for us to drive an hour up the road to meet face to face when we can meet face to face with them again.
One of the things I hear from, and it's kind of a recruiting point for the Corps of Engineers. One of the things that people say that they really enjoy doing is deploying, at least every so often, right? Yeah. we've had a lot lately. I know the power team has been on call
Yeah.
or been, potentially on deck
Yeah.
a lot. Do you get a lot of feedback from people who are like that park ranger or the engineer, or, I mean, I know you're at the division level, but do you get a lot of feedback or hear those stories from people saying, hey, this deployment, it kind of gave me a refreshed, I kind of feel a little bit refreshed after doing it. And do you
Oh,
hear
yeah.
things like that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And my folks also deploy my immediate office. I have my folks are part of different teams, but I was also, before me being at the region, I was the Fort Worth District Emergency Manager
Mm-hmm.
for about 5 years. I did that job also. So I got a good sampling of across the region. And the thing about it is, every one of our jobs, every one of those jobs that people go out, be it the temporary power mission, for example, they're all volunteers. Every single one of them have an actual job they do within the Corps of Engineers, be it park ranger, be it, maybe a lock and dam operator, whatever that job is. It could be design engineer. But they volunteer to go do this. They don't really get paid a heck of a lot more, but the thing about a disaster, like I talked about before, the satisfaction that you get from truly helping others is, and seeing that immediately, to where I've been in events where I've had people come up and hug me, and thank me for what we were doing when they saw the red shirt, and so it's a lot of satisfaction you get with that. But we also have challenges with that too, because it is volunteers, and our people do have jobs that they do, and the Corps of Engineers is not getting less work; we're getting more. So there's a challenge with keeping those teams filled also. So the more people that we could get volunteered for those teams, the better off we'll be when there is a disaster.
Are you getting those kind of numbers about the teams in terms of what the percentage of people they have on them, or whether they're fully stocked, so to speak? Or
oh yeah, no, I do. We track all of that, and then once a year we brief that to our headquarters, to our generals at the headquarters. So, and the districts do a great job keeping those teams full. They really work hard. The EM office at each district really works hard to keep those teams full. There's challenges with all of it. There's always going to be people floating in and out because of the nuance, because they are volunteers and they do have other jobs, but yeah, they always get people that want to do it. And then once they get on those teams, we'll train them up, teach them, train them, and get them ready to do their job, in a disaster.
Yeah, and a lot of that too is understanding that framework, right? That
Yeah.
emergency system. What is the proper term? Emergency response
support function. The
emergency.
The national response framework. Yeah, and we'll teach them all that.
Right.
We'll teach them all that. We're the Corps of Engineers. There's not a lack of smart people in our world. There's definitely not a lack. So anyone we get, don't care what background they're from, they will fit nicely into the emergency management world. But it takes a special kind of person. And you talked about it. You said it. You mentioned it. You can't be a person who sits back and just let things happen. You got to be that person who tries to get stuff done and doesn't stop pushing until it is accomplished. It takes a special person. You can't get stressed. When there's pressure, you can't crumble under pressure. You still need to be able to function. So it takes a personality type, to be able to do these jobs. And I can tell you, every one of our EM chiefs and their staff have that personality.
When you have to keep the commander, the division commander, the general, apprised of everything that's going on, and because he's getting phone calls not just from his district commanders during an emergency, but he's getting calls from politicians. He's getting calls from elected and other elected officials. When you have a very limited amount of time to sit down with him, if you only have a little limited amount of time to sit down with him, I know there's regular meetings. What is the most important piece of information that you have to give him if if he only has a few minutes for whatever reason?
Yeah, so that's the no. You have some good questions here. The there's information is key to all of this. Providing information upwards, across, and down. So it's with everybody, but we make the time to ensure we're getting our our general all that information, because he's answering to the generals at headquarters, besides answering to, like you said, and you're absolutely right, he'll answer to the Congress, the senators, the mayors, the governors. He'll get called by everybody, so he needs to know what's going on. And that's why with me, I've always had a great relationship with our generals, where if there's something hot, I'll just text them real quick and just let them know, what's going on. And a lot of times, I've been here through 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 generals, give or take. And it's been that way with all of them. They're more than happy to get that information from me. And again, it's just by any means necessary is how you get that information to them, because during a disaster, you're running around with, use the example with your hair on fire, and it's just, there's things going in every direction, and you're managing everything, and you need to manage everything. So making sure to keep people informed is the biggest, most important thing, because holding information is not where the power is in any place. It's sharing information, and not just during disasters either. But so we just we find a way. There's not really any secret sauce or technique that we use. It's just, we just do it. Phone call, text, whatever it might be. And eventually we will link up and get face to face, because we're always usually running in different directions too.
Yeah, you really, I mean, when you think about all the information that's constantly coming in during a disaster or contingency, or whatever term you want to use, you really have to be the type of person who can retrieve a lot of information, prioritize it, and sort of triage it to make sure you address what's most important, and figure that out really, really quickly, don't you?
Yep. Oh yeah. And that's where our emergency operations centers come into play. It's all those people. I just saw, just 2 years ago was the last time I was there in Tulsa, unfortunately because of COVID. But your operations center there, that's the hub of the information. That's the conduit. Everything in that district flows in and out of that emergency operations center. And then at the region, we have one too. So everybody is linked through those emergency operations centers and those hubs, and they are the repository of everything. So if there's a question about anything, you could call any phone or contact any person in that EOC, and they'll be able to either get or find or know who has the answer. So that's really the hub of everything. So they're the ones who are tracking it for historical purposes and current reasons, to make sure that we have what we need, and those districts and those people who are on the ground have what they need.
So Tony, I've held you for for probably a little over an hour now, it looks like. And
It went by quick.
Yeah, I always ask this. It's always the last question, or try to make it the last question.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of the different things. What have I not asked you that I should have asked you?
Oh, oh my goodness, I have no idea. We talked about so much. We talked about a bunch in that hour. I didn't realize that. It went by quick. It's good talking to you that time. But no, I can't think of anything else, other than this team. And I know I've talked about before, but this emergency management team of professionals that we have in the Corps of Engineers is just, it's every time I see them in action or even talk to them, you can see the passion within them, and they deserve, to be lauded. They are just, it's an amazing group. that they have, and a lot of them they don't get the forefront, in the regular day-to-day operations in the Corps of Engineers, because it's not the regular day-to-day job. It's something that they do, when things are absolutely at their worst. So it's just, I couldn't be prouder of all of them, and just proud to be a part of that family. But no, I know that wasn't anything you did ask me, but it's just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Tony. Hopefully we can get together again and discuss some of the even more specific areas that go on in emergency management and the disaster contingency operation and response world.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for Corpstruction. Corpstruction is a production of the Tulsa District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Public Affairs Office. This episode of Corpstruction was brought to you by the Regional Contingency Operations Division of the Southwestern Division U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.